Haha, I lied, I'm doing another prog band. I'm a grown man and I make my own decisions. Mastodon! Hello there ladies and gents, my name's John Azopardi and welcome back to One Man Bands. I'm re-energised after the mind-melting experience of last week and we're ready to transcend the astral plane with metal behemoths. Behemoths? Mastodon. On Monday I covered Mastodon's legendary track Oblivion, which you can watch up here, and as ever go and give that a watch before coming back to this video, as I'll be making reference to the things I learnt putting that cover together throughout the course of this video. Mastodon are a prog and metal band out of Atlanta, Georgia, and are essentially responsible for me going down the slippery slope to heavy music. So thanks Mastodon. Their album Crack the Sky is one of the best albums I've ever heard. It's one of my favourite albums overall, and that's why I wanted to cover Oblivion, as I think that's the first Mastodon song I knowingly listened to after hearing them be referenced by Queens of the Stone Age, I think. Mastodon have been one of my favourite bands for many, many years now. They're never out of my top 3 bands. There's been huge periods of my life where I would have said that they're my favourite band, but obviously we're musicians, we change our minds all the time. And full disclosure, I actually wrote a music theory essay on Oblivion, so I've got quite a lot of history with that song in particular, and Mastodon in general. But for this song I'm going to try and get an all-encompassing Mastodon feel rather than trying to go for any one specific period of their discography. I'll be pulling bits from here and there throughout their overall body of work. Spoiler, this is a very, very long track. This is the longest track that I've written for this season, but Mastodon are no strangers to lengthy prog epics. Part of the appeal of Mastodon for me is that each member of the band brings a slightly different style, a slightly different approach to writing, so they are a band that really is a sum of their parts. Drummer Bran Daler is the writer of most of the band's lyrics, and I think he came up with most of the band's album titles, things like that, the sort of talisman for the band. He's got a very fill-heavy, progressive drumming style with hands of lightning. And also, as of the Crack the Sky album, we discovered the voice of a 70s stadium rock singer. He's got an absolutely fantastic voice, and as someone who plays drums as the main instrument but also sings, he was a real inspiration to me in going, no, do you know what? I can sing and play drums at the same time. It's hard, though. How he does some of the drum parts and sings at the same time, I really, really am astounded by it. Bran is the metal Roger Taylor. Or Phil Collins, maybe, because he does lead vocals. So yeah, the metal Phil Collins. Bassist Troy Sanders composes some very busy and complex bass parts, but also knows when to reel it back in so that he can unleash his heavy caveman voice. He probably has the most quintessential metal voice out of everyone in the band, but that's not to take anything away from him. He can hit some incredible notes and jump between clean and heavy vocals effortlessly. Guitarist Bill Kelleher is a riff god and is behind many of the band's most important riffs throughout their discography. He is absolutely precise in his playing and provides some fantastic backup vocals as well. While other guitarist Brent Hinds has a totally different approach to his guitar playing. He uses techniques like hybrid picking, which is used in country music, and hammer-ons and pull-offs. He's absolutely mad, is Brent Hinds, and I love him for it. He's also got an incredibly distinct, unique voice. I've never really heard anyone in metal sing the way Brent Hinds does, taking over a lot of the bluesier sections in Mastodon songs, and his solos absolutely shred. He is the hillbilly Van Halen, and yeah, you can't replace Brent Hinds. Anyway, there's a lot to get through with this song because it's 7 minutes long, so let's jump in. Weekly disclaimer, don't have a guitar with humbuckers. I know you're going to shout at me because this is metal, but I've got an orange amp cranked to the nines on here, so I'm hoping to make up for my lack of humbuckers in a guitar with that. When I do have a guitar with humbuckers, I promise I'll use it. Send me a guitar with humbuckers, is what I'm saying. Mastodon. Okay, so for the first portion of the song, I wanted to kick off with a quintessential Mastodon riff. How do you write that, you may be asking? I'll show you. Mastodon have claimed this swung triplet style feel for themselves in metal, essentially, and it's loads of fun to play with. In a lot of typical music, you'll hear songs that are written in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. However, in a lot of Mastodon's biggest hits, you have this style of playing that is grouped into 3s. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. For some examples of Mastodon's biggest riffs being written in this style, we have Crystal Skull, Divinations, Black Tongue, Iron Tusk, High Road, Chimes at Midnight, Sultan's Cursed. There's loads of them. They love this feel, so that's how we're going to start our song. So here's the riff that I originally came up with. So that's all well and good, but Mastodon aren't quite that simple in their approach to riffs. Often, once they've introduced a riff, they'll have their two incredibly talented guitarists harmonise with it. So they'll have someone playing the original riff and then the other guitarist adding a harmony over the top. This is really, really common in Mastodon tracks. If you listen to the song Iron Tusk, with the intro, you start out with just the guitar riff, and then the guitars split off and have one person playing the riff and one person playing it in a different place on the neck. So after introducing my riff, I allowed the guitars to split off and harmonise, and also add a little embellishment at the end of the riff, like this. Mastodon guitarists Brent and Bill work in perfect harmony with one another, so I thought it important to have these moments throughout the song. After the second chorus, you also get a little harmony section. You can hear this sort of thing in their track High Road. But they have tons of moments like this. For the verses of this track, I originally wanted to go for the vocal approach of Brandela, the drummer, but once I got to the higher register that I knew I wanted to hit with these verse parts, unfortunately my voice just started to break up. I couldn't hit them cleanly. Brandela has an immense range and it's much higher than mine, so I'm sorry, Brand, that I can't match your silky tones, but you're a better singer than me. It ended up sounding more like a verse that Troy would sing, so here is my verse part.
How long could a creature hold its breath, submerged in the fire, up to the neck in pure propane, live in the empire.
For the chorus in this early part of the song, I wanted it to be a part that Troy would sing, with his caveman vocals roaring out over the top of a much simpler guitar and bass line, as in my mind he would be singing and playing bass at the same time, so I wanted to try and keep it fairly simple. Here's my chorus part.
A piece of eternity, falling backward through time, breathe deep up a thorn tree, sever the living twine.
In the Mastodon song that I covered, Oblivion, I like the way that it opens up going into the chorus. We spoke about this briefly last week in the Tool video, this concept of tension and release in a track. So in the verses of Oblivion, you have the very tense riff.
I flew beyond the sun before it was time, burning all the gold that held me inside my shell, waiting for you to pull me.
And that leads into the more spacey and ethereal chorus part with the little flourishes at the end on the guitar. That approach of a simple guitar line with much more basic chords and then ending with a little guitar flourish is what I used in my chorus, directly referencing Oblivion. So just listen to the chorus again and I'll point out those parts.
A piece of eternity, falling backward through time, breathe deep up a thorn tree, sever the living twine.
Oh, it's so hot. After 2 sets of verses and choruses, it's time to go into the land of Prog and a world of crazy riffs, just like Oblivion does. Firstly, we have this very open section with washing cymbals and a lot of open strings in the guitar part. This is a very common way for Mastodon's guitarists to add some tension to these big open chords. By having the open strings ringing out while the other ones are fretted, you have this lingering drone underneath the chord. You can really hear this throughout their 10-minute epic Hearts Alive off of Leviathan, which is why I wore this shirt. That song directly inspired this section of my track with the wandering guitar lines and washing cymbals like you're lost in the ocean. The use of those open strings in that section makes it far eerier than it may have been otherwise, and I definitely wanted to use that in my track. So for my song, I could just be playing this. That's boring. If we add the open strings, all of a sudden it makes it far eerier. get a much more eerie feel. For this section, I also tried to write a more Brent-style vocal line. He often takes up more of the bluesy approached vocal parts. So if you listen to their song Halloween, you get the idea of where I'm coming from. He has this incredibly unique tone of voice that really suits these bluesier parts of the songs. So here's the part that I came up with.
From the tips of your fingers to the life inside your blood, you can fall to pieces when the world stops spinning and the light don't move. When the world stops spinning and the light don't move. When the world...
After that, we're going to go really crazy heavy into the prog section. So we're going to jump over to John's drum zone to talk about Brandaler and the sorts of things he does in the proggy sections and also just in Mastodon songs in general. Take it away, John. I'm going to warn you now, it's so hot that I may drop my drumsticks constantly playing in the style of Brandaler. I love you, Bran. I'm sure you're watching, but you play so quickly and do some such mad stuff that if you make me look a fool, I shan't be happy. Hey, 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 you zesty noodles! It's me back in the drum zone, ready for some Brandaler, a man of lightning hands and immense skill. Going into the proggy section of my song, I wanted to make reference to some of my favourite parts of Brandaler's drumming. Firstly, his interesting hi-hat work in the proggier sections of the Mastodon songs. In a song like Capillarian Crest, he explodes into this crazy hi-hat section that links in with the mad hybrid picked guitars in this bit. And especially in the middle section of Ancient Kingdom. This use of both hands on the hi-hat is something I wanted to include in my song. I don't think it's quite as complicated as the Ancient Kingdom one, but here's what I came up with for my song. That's what I came up with. It's not quite as complicated, but it's still fun. In the context of the song, it fits in with what the guitars are doing. Just take a listen to that. Brandaler's playing is also very heavy on the fills. I spoke about a technique a couple of weeks ago when talking about Dave Grohl called a hurter, which is this. And he loves this a lot. A lot. So I started out a couple of the fills in my song with this. In fact, the intro of Mastodon's song, Curl of the Burl, literally brings in the drums doing this. There's also a similar approach when the heavy part of their song Chimes at Midnight starts, where he goes. So yeah, I started off a couple of the fills in my track with these hurters. There's also a couple of moments where you get some of Brandela's signature single stroke rolls, where he's just playing single strokes really quickly. And when I say really quickly, I mean he's going for it. In the aforementioned song Iron Tusk, the intro is just crazy fast single strokes. Essentially, his style of drumming is just so much fun. I'm enjoying it so much, I'm making the camera wobble. Oh no. Oh, it's so hot. Right, well, that's enough drums. Back over to non-drum zone John. I've gotten better at saying that now. Bye! The proggy section was also a chance for me to dive into more of Brent Hinds' interesting techniques when playing the guitar. I've not been learning these techniques for very long, so don't have a go at me, because I'm not brilliant at them yet. However, they're so interesting that I couldn't help including them in the track. So there's this concept of hybrid picking that I mentioned briefly earlier, which is using the pick and then using your other fingers as well to play the higher up strings. You can really hear this in the middle section of their song Capillarian Crest, where he combines hybrid picking with hammer-ons and pull-offs to give this crazy, wild guitar part that you just couldn't play any other way. Take a listen. So I put together these two harmonised hybrid picking sections, which when combined just sound mad. The first part goes like this. And the second goes like this. And both of them together sound like this. After we've enjoyed messing about in our proggy section, we're going to reduce right back down to almost nothing, but then reintroduce some new eerie acoustic guitar parts. I've essentially stolen this idea directly from the Mastodon track The Tsar, where as it moves into the latter section, everything gets really huge and really heavy and then drops out, just leaving one guitar part introducing the next section of the song. Take a listen to that. So I've got this acoustic guitar part bringing the track back in. Before a new vocal line.
It's okay, well, big man enough to see the abyss. There's a kiss, not a tool for eminence.
And then a guitar solo. And that is exactly what happens in the Tsar. I just stole it because it's cool. That's the point of these videos, sorry. As we head towards the end of the song, we reintroduce the riff from back at the beginning before we go into what is probably the most quintessentially metal section of the track. Gets pretty heavy. This part is a combination of this bit of drumming from their song Crystal Skull. And a sort of swung version of the outro from Blood and Thunder, which is just heavy as anything. I thought, you know, it wouldn't be a master song without some heavy riffs to end on. Right, this song is genuinely pretty long, so I'm going to cut to the chase and play it to you now. I hope you enjoy it. It's quite the epic, but I've squeezed in as much Mastodon as I possibly can. If you do enjoy it, then please leave a like on this video, a comment to let me know which band you want me to do next, and subscribe so you can see when I do. This is my song inspired by Mastodon. It is called The Thorn Tree. Enjoy.
So baby,